Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your Minifigure host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today? We have another episode. If you couldn't tell by now, it is about Lego Masters Season 3. Oh, my goodness. Oh, jeez. It is Lego Masters Season 3, the most recent episode, episode 5, and we're going to do a show rundown of everything that happened, things that you need to pay attention to, and especially those individuals that get booted so that you can check out their exit interview immediately on the backside, because that's super duper important. So let's go ahead and jump on in. Now, this week, the contestants had something a little bit different. They are doing a very first in the Lego Master Show, Brickminster Dog Show, to take after the Westminster Dog Show. Anyway, contestants were given an opportunity to race, believe it or not, from a starting line to a podium that had a certain colored leash that matched to a certain color collar on a certain type of dog. So obviously it was super important for some of them, especially our firemen, who just had to have the Dalmatian, and believe it or not, they actually broke the stand because it just went too crazy. Steven went too crazy. Like, come on, dude, calm down. But I get it. He got the dog he wanted, and we roll on from there. So first things first, after they have their dog, we're ready to go. They're going to start building. They know what they're going to do. They're measuring dogs. They're like, how does this dog walk? Because the thing is, your dog has to walk down the aisle. Your living dog walks with one of you or one of the contestants, and the other one has to, quote unquote, walk, be pulled down the aisle, wheels, however you're going to get it down there. So first up to go was Emily and Liam. Emily and Liam were a little bit too adventurous, shall I say. They were a little bit too adventurous, over the top. They didn't quite have a great game plan ready to go, and unfortunately, it really set them back. And their pretty puppy just did not end up getting to walk the aisle, because what they did is they used the golden brick. So the next show, the golden brick is going to be in play again. Believe it or not, Emily and Liam, who are riding this cloud, they're way up there. They're like, hello, commoners down there. We're up here. And they have fallen back to reality using this golden brick. The lifeline is now gone. So it'll be curious to see what happens moving forward next week. So the actual first contestants that were up were Dave and Emily. Now, before I get into Dave and Emily's stuff, I'm sorry I have to hit on this. It drives me nuts. It absolutely drives me nuts. Fox does their cutscenes, they're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And they introduce a dog or whatever and say, oh, we've got dogs, and dogs start running and stuff. And Emily just screams. Nobody screams for 30 seconds straight like that. Like that. Just stop it. Stop the editing. I know it's edited. I have an ear for that kind of thing. I know it was edited together. You can hear the clip in between. Like, I can hear the cut between the two pieces. I don't care who your editor is. I can hear it. Stop it. Just stop it. Anyway, so they had I don't know how you say this dog. Papillon, whatever. Papillon. How about that? They got a Papillon. I actually didn't hate their build for once. I shouldn't say that I have hated their builds. This is the first time that I looked at one of their builds. I was like, oh, you're not going to end up in the bottom 2 or 3. I'm impressed. Congratulations. I hate to be that person, but let's call a square, a ball, a ball. Let's not play games here. Anyway, their dog, I was impressed. They actually nailed it. They got huge congratulations from Amy and Jamie, and Jamie especially. Jamie feels like that staunch guy that, you got to smack upside the head, have him have an adult beverage or something before he finally loosens up and gives you a compliment. He's like that hardcore teacher, as you're going through high school. It's like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And the one assignment that you turn in, and he's like, you did incredible, I gave you a 100. And you really honestly don't know what to say. You're kind of blown away. You're taken aback. You're like, aren't you going to yell at me now? Aren't you going to tell me I suck? I can only imagine that's what Dave and Emily kind of felt to a certain degree. I know I'm being a little harsh. But they have seemed to hang out in the bottom way too often. So the question is it what, a change of fortune, something like that? But they really did good. And Jamie actually had mentioned that, Amy and Jamie both mentioned that they just use plates to be able to get the quote unquote floofiness, as they called it. Anybody that has a dog knows about floofiness. But to get the floofiness of the face and then the underbelly and all that kind of stuff, the tail. Actually, at first I was looking at the tail. I was like, that is kind of stupid looking. And I was like, I kind of like that. It's kind of cool. It was a different way of doing it. I'm glad that they just kind of were like, you know what? We're just going to throw long plates and short plates, and we're just going to do it. We're just going to go for it. Different colored, long plate, short plates. Here we are. Happy anniversary. We're done. They really nailed it. I'm really impressed. Next up, so Ethan and Dom are up next, and, well, they are doing the long-haired dachshund, or the dachshund, depending how you say it. It's a special breed of dog. I've had one of those in my life. I've had a few mixies of that breed in my life. Anyway, so if you harken back to last week, and I told you when I gave you my top 3 to fight for the end, Ethan and Dom were in there, and I said, just push aside, the editing from last, what was coming up for this week. You just never know. And, it wasn't pretty. They put the collar on their dog, and the legs broke that were up in the front, and the head fell off.
Our pets' heads are falling off! Okay, just calm down.
Okay, I'm calm. But its head fell off. Can we not forgive this? Do we have to forgive this? What are we supposed to do with this? His head fell off. Poor guy. So I imagine immediately they went through a moment of sheer panic, just uncontrollable panic. And the thing is, when two people panic, two people are frightened, scared, whatever the emotion is, usually there is at least one person that has a more minimal level or a more higher level. And the person that is more capable of functional thought is able to collect themselves and deal with the situation. I don't really know who that was necessarily in this situation because, editing, you can't really tell. However, somebody was like, whoa, put your package behind you. Let's deal with the situation. So they ended up carrying the dog down the aisle, believe it or not. Well, one of the things is you got to bring your dog down the aisle. Your dog is going to walk down the aisle. Okay, well, how's that going to go? We'll see. Now, the build itself wasn't that bad. I actually kind of liked the way that it looked. But there was something about the build. And maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. And I've watched National Geographic and Discovery Channel before it was what it is now. And the build actually reminded me a lot of like a miniature Gila monster. It's kind of short, squatty, chesty, kind of bizarre looking, funky looking. I was like, this is a brand new species of Gila monster. I loved it. With that in mind, I loved it. But Jamie and Amy are absolutely right. They were absolutely right. The structure on this thing failed. And aside from that, everything else was going well. The structure was I shouldn't say the structure was perfect. Everything seemed to be going right until they had to move it. And then, boop, and it ended the world. So Brendan and Greg were up next. They ended up with the Boston Terrier. Now, if you know anything about Boston Terriers, there's kind of like maybe not a mid-sized dog, but just below a mid-sized dog, depending on if they're a purebred or not. But my goodness, the size, the look, and all the cuteness you could put together with a plastic brick. Oh my God, their build had it all. Absolutely had it all. Look, Brendan and Greg have been hitting their peak as we get into the we're pretty much in the middle of this competition. I mean, if you look at the number of teams and you think about how many episodes are left and how many people are being eliminated, we're about halfway. We're pretty much in the halfway. Next episode, we are full on midway. So it's nice to see of them hitting their stride. It's nice to see them really, really kicking in some great builds and basically telling everybody, hey, you better watch out for us. I'm not somebody that was like, oh, you should watch out for these guys. It's more like okay, I've seen some stuff. I'm gonna hold you out here. You're not in my time. I'm gonna hold you out here. Can you give me a little bit more? And they're starting to show a little bit more. But my God, their build was absolutely gorgeous. The head, the legs are absolutely perfect in the way that they were created. The rear legs, if you know anything about dog legs, dogs don't usually stand with their legs, together across from one another. They're kind of spread apart, and that was perfect in the way that it was done. They captured the tail, the coloring, the belly up to the chest and the head. I was blown away. Every second that I looked at their build, all I could keep thinking about is like, great, it's perfectly lifelike. Can y'all please build me 8 models of the 8 pups that I have, 6 that are currently still with us? I mean, hello. I would love to fill my studio shelves with dogs like that. I don't need a 1-to-1 of my Great Pyrenees Saint Bernard mix. I don't need a 1-to-1 of a 140-pound dog. I don't want that. But the rest, yes, I would take a 1-to-1. So up next, we have Nick and Stacy with the Corgi. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Nick has a Corgi at home, where his family does, where he lives in Canada. I'm pretty sure that's the case. If it's not, I must have made it up and dreamt it somehow. Anyway, I absolutely love the build, but oh my God, the butt wiggles. I could not stop laughing. Like, for real? Oh my God, please give me some more of that. I was kind of blown away because, look, if you've ever had a dog, if you've ever owned a dog, and when they get excited and that tail starts to go, the butt wiggles are insane, especially if you have a smaller dog or stuff like that. But I'm right now, like, the vision in my head is of our younger German Shepherd Leo, who's not even 2 years old yet, and when he shakes his tail, his whole back end starts moving. So I was like, oh my God, yes, this is perfect. So it was really good. There was one thing that I thought they should have had, and actually Amy had mentioned it as well. A little bit more coloring in the brown would have been all right. Instead of just the orange, I thought that would have been a nice way. Obviously, I don't know what colors are there. I only can see what they're building and stuff. I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying, if there was something they could have improved, that would have been it. And then the last thing, the snout, I thought was a little bit too squared off for a dog, for a model of a dog, but it wasn't bad. It just seemed like they did the best that they could. And, if they could have done anything, it would have been coloring and fixing the snout. But as a whole, I thought it was pretty good. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see if this is, something that ends up in the top few, all said and done. So we couldn't get out of here, obviously. We're not leaving, but we couldn't end the show anytime soon without saying, what Emily and Liam had done. I was fully expecting them not to really show their thing, but they did. They ended up with an interesting little dog, I would say. Thank God they used the golden brick, because their bulldog representation was, somebody open the trash can and just dump everything they did in there, please. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that, because look, that build, as much as they put into it, there was no way this build was going to walk down the aisle. There was no way this build was going to stand even in undulation in the floor. There's no stinking way. Thank God they used the brick. It just didn't end very well. It just was something that was like, you know what? It wasn't our best. Everybody has those moments where they're like, you know what? It wasn't our best. Let's try again. Right? Yeah, absolutely. So next up, we have Austin and Justin. They have the Cavalier King Charles. I never knew what these kind of dogs were called until this episode. So thank you, Lego Masters, for teaching me something else. I absolutely loved the quote-unquote floofiness, as it's been deemed. The tail and the feet. You have to get that kind of wisping feel with the tail and the fluffiness with the feet to a certain degree. It's not really fluffy. It's floofy. It's hair that's just kind of like if you were to see like a model, with long hair and they have the fan blowing and their hair is flowing and they do that slow time filming of it. That's what I expect out of the feet of this dog with the hair hanging off the legs. I know it's so stupid, but it is exactly what I picture in my mind. Anyway, the face of the puppers was really, really cute. I did like the way that it was done. I thought it was also scaled really, really well. And again, the face is what sold it apparently to the judges because Amy even brought it up. I thought it was really nice, nicely well done. And Amy had mentioned like you nailed it with the face. And I thought they did a really good job. So, Austin and Justin, I think you got to consider up here for this challenge, at least in the top few. So John and Xavier are up next. They had the French Bulldog. Now, immediately as they entered onto the carpet, they were getting ready to go. The dog's head broke when they entered, and they had to carry their poor pup. I know, it's so sad. Just like Dom and Ethan, they had to carry their dog. So, not good. It's not good when that happens. It was a pretty cute looking pup. I did like the way that it was done. The scale, okay, the size, maybe not the scale, but the size seems to be relevant to what the actual dog is. I thought that was okay. But the judges had mentioned, it didn't quite fit. Like the head of the dog didn't quite fit. It wasn't so much the head as it was like the neck area, because French Bulldogs are very stocky and they don't have like a small chest into a small neck. It's chest to neck. And then you taper slightly at the top just before you enter the head, if you taper at all inward. So they did miss on that. I like the coloring. The texturing on the outside definitely wasn't one of my favorite things. I guess I just thought that maybe they could have done something slightly different as far as the texturing goes, smooth it out a little bit. I don't know. I don't really know. So Steven and Steven, they are up next, and here's what they had to bring. So what they had was a Dalmatian. They really just kind of drew I don't know if you want to call it the best dog, because it is probably, I think it was probably the taller or tallest of the dogs that they had an opportunity to choose from. But, they had to be cliche, like, we're firefighters, we need a Dalmatian. Okay, they're going to go get the Dalmatian. And they did. However, with that behind us, in the beginning, if you recall, in the beginning of the episode, they chose to put it in a downward pose so that they didn't have to fight gravity, which I thought was really interesting, because you don't have to build up this larger frame. You don't have to worry about scaling it as much. You don't have to worry about all these pretty bricks that have to go around. That was actually probably one of the most brilliant calls of this show. One of the most brilliant strategy decisions of the entire series thus far. Not just this season, episode or season 1, 2, and this season. I think this was probably one of the most beneficial strategy calls that anybody has ever done. Straight up, for real. So moving on to the rest of the dog, I really liked the head. I thought the head was really pretty looking. I love the way that the eyes were done. I thought they really managed to accomplish that. And even though the spots, look, they had these spots on the dog, right? Dalmatians have these spots. There was something that just kept sticking out to me, and I watched it probably 5 or 6 times, back. And I'm looking, and I'm like, okay, what is wrong with the spots? The dog wasn't completely black and white. I get that. That isn't what caught my eye. I was like, there's texturing to the spots. What is wrong with the spots? And on some of the spots that weren't locked into like the side of, stacks of bricks or plates, there was some texture to it. And I was immediately like, oh my God, it's sticking out like a tumor. It stuck out like a tumor. I was kind of like, oh my God, this is weird looking. But anyway, I was wondering, anybody else notice that? Anybody else, have come to this realization like that kind of looks like this? Anyway, overall, I thought it was a really nice build. And I mean, lastly, the all four paws flopped out, just kind of like, hey, look at me. I'm so playful. Anybody else? I just want to take him home. Blaze can come home with me. Like, I have all the love, dude. All the hearts are right here. You come on, you can come join my pack. So let's get to the final end of this. Who is alive, who is going home, and who is the winner? And this time around, they chose the top 3, not the top 2. So they chose Brendan and Greg. They chose Steven and Steven, and Austin and Justin. All 3 were absolutely worthy to be chosen to be potential winners. Steven and Steven had their really gorgeous build. Austin and Justin the same. And immediately when I walked down the aisle, Brendan and Greg's dog, I was like, this has got to win. This has to win. I put it in my notes. I was like, with a star next to it, like this is going to be in the top. Sure enough, it won. I'm not shocked. I'm not blown away. This was coming. And I had mentioned earlier in the episode here, like Brendan and Greg are hitting their stride at the right time. Some other teams are starting to fall, and they're just continuing to go boop, 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 and climb that ladder to success and, potential winning a Lego Masters championship of season 3. Let's not talk about just winning the show. Let's talk about championship, creating this dynasty that they've got going on. So really impressive. Then we end up with the bottom 2. John and Xavier were chosen, and Ethan and Dom. This is such a far cry from where Ethan and Dom were a week ago in the top 2 with Nick and Stacy, and they have fallen hard. Both of these teams, their dogs were not able to walk down the aisle, automatically relegating them to the bottom 2, unfortunately, but they are here. Ethan and Dom, this is not a good sign for them. This could absolutely end up, derailing their opportunities as they move forward because, look, Brendan and Greg right now are coming in hot. You had the team, using a golden brick is one thing and just kind of like, okay, we can move along, but Ethan and Dom don't have that lifeline. Neither do John and Xavier. John and Xavier's build was definitely not my favorite, but I didn't hate it. It was something that I was concerned about as, you saw the building process as little as you did, but it was something that I was concerned about. And unfortunately it caused them to go home. And I've kind of been, you could say that I've kind of been a jerk on some levels about John and Xavier's performances. They just have not lived up to what should be for Lego Masters. And unfortunately, they're going home. And now the competition really starts to strain. So before we get to the top 3 teams of my calling out, John and Xavier, we've got the episode that is going to be coming up after this that you get to hear from them and all of their trials and tribulations and stuff like that. And I feel like we're at a point with Lego Masters, and I know this is going to sound harsh. I know this is absolutely going to sound harsh, but I feel like we're at a point where I don't know who's going home next week. I know that I've been, on, Dave and Emily's backside a little bit. I'm like, okay, if I were going to make a call, it could